Paltrocast. Okay, well, I'm going to say good morning. Is it good morning by you?
It is. It is. It is.
There you go. And you're one of those people where there's so much to talk about because there's a lot of projects. We can always talk about the family revival stuff, the
Yep.
solo career. You're now a world record holder. Last time I spoke with you, you were about to break that world record, and now you have.
Yeah.
Then there's the bands you had before you were proper solo artists, etc. And then there's the hot sauce. Is that still alive? The hot sauce?
Yeah. Yeah. It's
Okay.
mostly sold on the tour, but yeah, we still do it.
So the first thing is, now that you're a record holder, how are you sleeping?
It's funny. It took me like 50 years to actually understand and give a shit about sleep hygiene. So it's really tough on tour, man. It's brutal. Now that I'm home, I wear a Garmin watch. It gives me a sleep score every night. It breaks down like how much REM, how much deep, and I am back in the upper 80s and low 90s of my sleep score. I'm very proud. It's funny that that's like a thing, but yeah, man, on tour, I'm sure a lot of those nights were in the 40s for sleep quality.
Right. But it didn't show within the gigs himself. So that says, hey, this dude's been doing this a long time. And that at this point, you're probably more comfortable on stage than you are off the stage, meaning you're not one of those artists who gets nervous before the show.
Thank God, no. My dad, for as much of a complete legend, that he was, he got nervous every time. Small gigs, big gigs, and he also did say, once the band kicked in, boom, like pretty much the first couple beats of the first tune, that all went away. But for me, I don't really get nervous, but I do get excited because I love connecting with people.
I had the pleasure a week or two ago, speaking of, I believe his last keyboardist, Peter,
Yeah.
and it was funny to learn from Peter that he started off as kind of a hard rock guy, kind of like you did. The
Yeah.
first time I had the pleasure of interviewing you, I bothered you with Iron Maiden and Megadeth questions and all that, and he seems to come from from that same world as well. In other words, the blues people that we think of are not necessarily blues people.
Well, I mean, if you would have flipped open my cassette holder, when I was even 15, you
Yeah.
would have seen Iron Maiden Power Slave, but you would have seen BB King, and you would have seen Jimi Hendrix, and you would have seen Steely Dan. So I loved Maiden, I loved Metallica. I really had a lot of respect for their art. Like they really, and obviously, like it shows through all the years, like they're the pinnacle of that genre, you know. But I love jazz and blues just as much.
Wow. So you had good taste when you were a teenager.
I was really lucky. I mean, what I would do is kind of reverse engineer interviews with my heroes. So if I found out that Eddie Van Halen really liked McLaughlin or Segovia or like whatever, I would go and I'd get a little taste. And sometimes it would resonate with me, and sometimes it wouldn't. Um, when I discovered Hendrix, um, I shouldn't say that because I had heard a bunch of Hendrix. When I discovered Hendrix playing bluesier, like Red House,
Mm-hmm.
I was like, well, that's like sexy and more dangerous and darker, and like I want to hear more of this. And then that was, you know, John Lee Hooker and Howlin' Wolf and BB King and Buddy Guy, and he Hendrix was really a gateway drug for me in blues. But did I have a diverse array of tastes when I was younger? Yeah, I'm lucky that I did.
Well, last question about all of that, if you don't mind. The
Yeah.
I'm hearing all about guitar influences. Now, singing, is that something that came to you later, or is that the accidental kind of thing of, well, no one else can sing, so I guess I got to?
A little of both, I think. When I was a kid, I knew that when I sang to the radio that I knew that I was in pitch. Like I knew that I knew I could do it. And then I tried out for a musical when I was a freshman in high school, and I pretty much wiped out the other three kids that were trying, and I was like, I kind of shocked myself. I didn't believe in my singing voice or anything. I gave it a shot, and it was just like, whoa, that just jumped out of me. And I was like, well, maybe there's something to this. But I was on the shy side. So it kind of took, really getting with neighborhood kids and having those first kind of like neighborhood punk bands, kind of like where you're downplaying a talent and not giving a shit under
Right.
the guise of we're punk, like, to kind of develop some cojones to develop it further. And then a little bit later, there was some situations in some early bands like, I don't sing, make him sing. And we did
Yeah.
that routine. And then it still took a little minute to believe in it. It took a little minute, especially, when your dad's a legend, it's like, you really have to kind of fight to the other side of like, well, wait, I have my own voice, no matter who my father is. I have my own vibration, my own story, my own emotions to pull from. So
I call that shifleting, as in the guitarist of the Foo Fighters, Chris Shiflett, where before he was in the Foo Fighters, he was playing bass in a punk band. And then we see him join the Foo Fighters, and he's able to play every lead ever while singing. And you go, oh, I didn't know you could do all that because you were in a punk band. Anyway,
totally.
back to you. The Devon show right here. So yet another year you're playing the Beacon Theater in New York with, which is a tradition in the family. And it's great to see that this has become an annual tradition where you and crew all come out with special guests, etc. So how long were you waiting to announce the revival tour that we have happening in November and December?
Well, I mean, put it to you this way, we're already putting together a concept and starting to lock up dates for next year. So it's
Wow.
a 12-month process. It really gets heavy about 6 months out from tour. So in May, we're really trying to tighten everything up. And then, you want to give enough time for people to get excited and, pardon me, be able to grab tickets and all that. I think we announced in August, but yeah, it's a year-round job.
Yeah, and the people on stage with you, always interesting. I was glad to see it was last year or the year before Robin Zander from Cheap Trick, one of my favorite bands, him being part of it. And now we see Tal is there and Luther and Cody, etc. Who's part of it this year? Do we get Tal, Luther, Cody? Am I
Yeah.
correct?
So what's really cool is the band that Dwayne Betts and I co-founded a few years back, Allman Betts Band. We announced a hiatus a while ago. So it's really great that we are, kind of resurrecting Allman Betts to be the house band for this, with Tal Wickenfeld on bass, which is so cool. And kind of a little, bit of kind of a musical chairs with the drum spots. We have John Lum, we have Cody Dickinson, and we have Alex Orbison.
Mhm.
So that's really kind of the core band. And then the guests are really great this year. I mean, we have the legend Jimmy Hall. We have Jackie Green joining us for the first time on this tour, and we're really excited about that. We have Anders Osborne for the
Mhm.
tour this year. Ali Venable, this up and coming fantastic blues rock singer, songwriter, guitar player. She could really play, and a ton of others. So it's an exciting year for us. I think there's I think over half of the guests are brand new. Blues legend Larry McCray. I mean, the list goes on. So tomorrow we actually announced the second wave. We have 6 or 7 additions that haven't been announced yet to kind of re-spark interest, as we are today.
Wow.
We are 1 month from the kickoff. And we're just really excited. We're excited to get out there, and we rebranded this year to include the Betts family name. This is now the Allman Betts Family Revival. Something that we discussed in the early days of this, like, hey, if this keeps growing, we certainly have to merge the families, and I'm excited about that. So yeah, I think it's an exciting year, and I'm really stoked that we're getting to do some secondary and tertiary markets. Instead of historically, we only hit big cities, and this year we get to go to like Buffalo and some places that haven't hosted a revival yet.
Right. So you went from that 51 date tour to
Yeah.
now this heavy duty kind of thing. Do you get an early 2024 off? Do you have any downtime at all coming up?
Yeah, I kind of started a tradition with my wife 5 years ago. January 1st, we escape and we go lay on an island. And we spend a week, 7 days, and just kind of recalibrate. She's a doctor, so she's giving her energy all year long to treat. And so we're really similar in that by the end of the year, we're drained.
Wow.
And then I usually hate touring in January. It's so freaking cold and like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? So yeah, I think you take January off, and February is always a great time to record, get in the studio, and then you start firing up the bus and in March, head back out.
Hmm. Well, one question, one compliment, and then you're done with me. The
Been a
question is,
pleasure.
when we go through the biggest bands of all time in the US, including the Allman Brothers, it's interesting to see, did they ever tour this place? Did they ever tour that place? And that leads me to the impression that the Allman Brothers were primarily an American thing. Am I wrong about that? Or are there territories overseas where the record sales were strong, or they did tour there, that kind of a thing? Because we all know the Beacon Theater would happen every year, and then there'd be like 28 shows and that kind of a deal. The emphasis was always on they're a Georgia band who kills it in New York, and that's that.
Yeah. I mean, historically, the Allman Brothers, the East Coast, specifically the Northeast, was just insane for the Allman Brothers. Southeast too, obviously, with bragging rights, Georgia, Florida. Midwest was strong. West Coast wasn't so strong for them. I think they
Hmm.
did kind of half the numbers that they would do the rest of the country. They did do Europe in the 90s during their Renaissance. They did do Japan. Um, but I'll tell you something, the first time I ever toured Australia, I went with Cyril Neville. We had a band called Royal Southern Brotherhood for a few years, and we went down to Australia and played. And I remember we were doing a meet and greet after the show in Sydney, and this cat came up with like 8 Allman Brothers records and tears in his eyes. Like, he was just like, I was so happy to see you. Your family means so much to me. He goes, they never came here. And I was like, wait a second, like the Allman Brothers or Greg Allman never ever played in Australia? And he was like, never. So I was like, wow, I couldn't believe, I just couldn't believe that. Um, because at the end of the day, they are a worldwide known and respected band. I tell you, in February, I flew to Nairobi, to Kenya in Africa to work with a young band. I was kind of coaching them through some demos and some songwriting. They had
Mhm.
reached out to me. We developed a relationship, and I said, "Hey, it'd be really cool if," and they're kids, they're young kids. I was like, "It'd be really cool if the kids could play a gig. Is there any way you can book a gig while I'm there? I'd like to see them live, just to get a feel for them." And then they put word out that I would be there and probably sit in. There was Allman Brothers t-shirts in the crowd in Nairobi, Kenya.
And
And I was like, damn, like there's a vast reach there, I mean, those now, I mean, we're all a little longer in the tooth. I mean, those records have been out for a long time. So they've had time to crawl around the globe, right? Um, so yeah, I think obviously, America was the big one, but man, they're known everywhere.
so the takeaway from that is that eventually your group could tour Australia and could go to these places where Almonds couldn't over the years and actually bring the legacy there. So tremendous upside and
I mean, I've already done almost 40 countries.
and 51 states. So
50, yeah, 50 states in less than 50 days. Oh my God. I can't believe we did it. That was quite a thing.
exactly. Well, the compliment before I let you go, and I might have said this to you the last time I had the pleasure of speaking with you, is when Van Halen, one of my favorite groups, the word came out that, hey, Joe Satriani is going to be on guitar and Jason Newsted on bass. And then we found out, oh, that tribute's not happening because the guys can't get it together. My outward feedback into the world was Van Halen should be doing what Devon Allman is doing, where let's say you have some members who can't participate or don't want to. All I have to do is go, hey, how's everything going? Good to see you guys. They're going to play the songs. And then it's a group of people who do that. In other words, I think that you've cracked the code on how to keep up a classic rock legacy, but keep it fresh so that the future generations care. Can you take that compliment?
Yeah, I guess I never really looked at it through that lens because I'm knee deep in it, and it really started so innocently. Dad left us, and a few months later, I was so like, what do I do? And like, when I wanted to dive back into music, and I was like, my first time on the stage, I want to celebrate him. And it turned out the only night the Fillmore had was his 70th birthday night. And I was like, well, there you go. Like, and then they were like, that was so much fun. Can we do it again next year? And I hadn't even thought about next year. And they were like, can we do 2 nights though, because it sold out? And I was like, well, yeah, if we do 1 night, we might as well keep the gear up and do a second night. And then all of a sudden this tradition was born out of just a desire to celebrate him on his 70th birthday. Now it's in its 7th year. Never thought it would become a thing. So to hear that is really, thank you, because that means a lot. And maybe we have kind of cracked a code. And I always use the blueprint of The Last Waltz, because I loved that. The band comes out, plays a few, and then it's ladies and gentlemen, Joni Mitchell or whatever.
Everybody, yeah.
Yeah, and I love that that construct.
Well, that is what you're giving the world. Thank you for that. Thank you for the many years of great music, and looking forward to the gig at the Beacon and the Paramount. I'm blessed to know that there's 2 gigs by me. So thank you for your time, and wonderful rest of the day, and hope you get that January vacation as planned.
Yes.
Paltrocast.